Bull market's back, baby. Or you think this is hopium?
No, I don't think it's hopium. I think we are in a very good spot that, again, is a good accumulation range to this is the time, man, when that ETF gets approved, things are going to we're going to go 45, 48 in a quick fashion. So yeah. I think right now is a good time to continue to stack sats. But then again, I think every time is a good time to continue to stack sats. So when you ask the Bitcoin maxi that question, the answer is always the same.
Yeah. So I agree. This is the time to learn, and we're going to dive deeper into like what that actually means. But we always start the podcast with a little bit of TA. Although we are holding for the long term, it's nice to look at the bigger picture, the overall trend of the overall market. So we're looking at TradingView right now. And we're looking at the Bitcoin on a weekly chart. We're sitting right under 35,000 for one Bitcoin. One Bitcoin's 35,000, and we're actually back at that range pre-Terra Luna. Terra Luna was these candles right here, and everything dumped like this time right here. Things are looking up. I think we're at a major. Depends on how you look at it. Right now, we're at a major resistance. But if we can break over 35K and have a few, even like 1 or 2 weekly candles hold above, I think that resistance becomes our new support.
You just reminded me of something while we were sitting here talking. I think we owe a thanks to somebody. Something major happened in the last 7 days since our last podcast, and I want to send a personal thank you to Sam Bankman-Fried for allowing us to get Bitcoin at 15,000 by blowing up the ecosystem about a year ago from now, and he's going to be probably doing somewhere between the next 25 to 115 years in a federal penitentiary. But, thank you for giving us cheap sats.
All the shit we've
not your keys, not your coins.
Yeah, not your keys, not your
And again, I am an individual who was affected by Gemini Earn for my own stupidity. So I understand people that may have trusted some of these exchanges that you thought were acting in good faith and were not. And, there were ripples through the ecosystem because of that FTX collapse. So I'm not trying to put any light on that, but I think when we look back on this time frame in 5-10 years, and we look at Bitcoin going to as low as it did, I don't think we get 15K Bitcoin if FTX doesn't collapse. Yeah. I also think we get 100K Bitcoin last cycle if he's not doing all the shenanigans that he was doing behind the scenes. Yeah. So we got stunted that cycle, and I think we'll get repaid this cycle, which is, again, the point of me bringing all this up is that this is a wonderful time to be in crypto. Whether you've been in before or you're coming in now, this is going to be a time that we're going to see. I think we're going to see some really good returns on obviously Bitcoin and Ethereum, but also the stuff that you are much more smarter than me at picking out.
I think after FTX, that was the start of the new bull run. We washed out all these dirty players in the industry. And we never know we're in a bull market until we have more data to look back on.
Agree.
So once we're 6, 12 months, we look back, we're like, oh, wow, shit, that was the start of the bull run. But you never think you're actually in a bull run until you have more data to look back on. And you can use that vice versa. You never know you're in a bear market until you have more data to look back on. The bear market started in November of 2021.
If you look back as a watcher right now of this podcast and you go back 6 months, we were talking about this back then.
Yeah.
We were talking about, hey, do you think this is the start? We were having these conversations back then. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. Mm-hmm. I think looking back, we started the bull run January of this year. I think we flipped the calendar right into the beginning of the bull. And I think the confirmation is here now where we sit at 35,000, 20,000 more than we were at the bottom. And, we got ETFs just around the corner. We have, institutional adoption. We're going to have this thing in pensions. It's going to really explode. And also you have, only 2 million coins on exchanges. You have less than 10% of the total supply available for people to fight over. So all of that culminating with this, what we've been saying this for the past year since we've been doing this podcast, that, this thing cycles, man, and you need to be positioning yourself to be ready for that cycle. And here we are in the crypto spring. This is the spring.
Yeah, this is the spring. Well, they say crypto works in seasons, right? Mm-hmm. We were just in a crypto winter the last 2.5 years, and that was the time to build. when the bull market's in full blast, that's not the time to play catch up. That's not the time to start learning. The last 2.5 years were your time to start learning and building in the bear market, right?
Absolutely.
What's the famous saying? You get Bitcoin at the price you deserve.
Yeah, 100%.
So for the people that buy at 100K or 69K, they're buying the top. Well, you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. For the people that were buying at 15,000, 16,000, they say there's a tourist and a settler. You ever hear that saying?
Mm-hmm.
The tourists and the settlers. So the tourists are the people that come and go. They're the retail. They follow mainstream media news. They don't ever do their own due diligence. And then we have the people that are the pioneers, the builders, the innovators that stick around no matter what prices.
At least for me, for sure. No matter what the price of Bitcoin is, it's never the wrong price to be buying.
Yeah.
Again, because, we're talking about the greatest asset ever created. We're talking about returns that, if you look at, there's charts if you go on Twitter all over the place where you can see the best performing assets of the last decade. And you got Apple stock, you got Netflix stock, you got Amazon stock, you have Nvidia, you have Tesla. And those are like, some of those are like 800%. I think Tesla's like 1,400%. And then 59,000% you have Bitcoin. And that's the last 10 years. And people are going to say, oh, well, you're never going to see, this thing go from pennies to, 60, 70,000. Okay. But like, you still have these people who were saying, because I was there for this when Bitcoin was $250 and you had the Winklevoss twins saying it was going to 40. And then you had other people saying, well, this is an asset that could hit $1 million one day. And when the price was 200, people looked at them like they were absolutely batshit crazy. And now here we are where we're all in this space, at least in pretty much uniformity, saying 100,000 is inevitable this cycle. So here we are saying that. So what does this thing look like in 2030? What does this thing look like in 2035? So if we're sitting at 35,000 and $1 million is still in play, we're talking about still like another 30, 40x just in Bitcoin, which has been the best performing asset of the last 10 years, hands down. If you bought this thing at any point in time in any 4-year span since its inception, you're up money. And I will preach this: time in the market, not timing the market. If you bought at 69K, great. And if you still have it, even better. You're going to be in profit. If you've been DCAing since you bought 69K, since then you are in profit. So like, again, and this goes straight out to the haters, and I wanted to mention this real quick, so I'm going to speak on this really quick. Maybe we can clip this. To the haters on our videos that are talking about, Bitcoin being trash and I wouldn't put my money in, I'd rather have USD. You know what? I don't care. Don't buy it. Don't buy in. It doesn't hurt me. It only hurts you. There's 21 million Bitcoin. That's all. There's 2 million sit on exchanges for us to fight over. It's going to have again in 6 months. When you want it, it won't be there for you to get it. And guess what? I won't feel bad for you. We're here to help the people that want to be helped. If you don't want to be helped and this video comes up in your algorithm and you feel compelled to comment, thanks for the view. Thanks for the comment. We'll keep moving on. Good luck when Bitcoin's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and you're crying about it.
I think 100K is definitely reasonable. I think we're going to top out around 120, 140,000 a Bitcoin. But I think 100,000 will act as a psychological point, which we can either, sell off, because people are going to be selling at that 100K psychological level. But I think there's going to be a lot more demand than people think. And I think we can have a God candle over 100K. And, that's where I'm going to be taking profits. I'm not doing anything right now besides accumulating. But like you said, like once the bull market's in full blast, our strategies are going to change. Maybe not your strategy because you're a Bitcoin maxi. But my strategy is definitely going to change. I'm never selling my Bitcoin. I always preach to people, never sell your Bitcoin, but take profits and rotate your profits from your smaller altcoin positions into the granddaddy best asset in the world, Bitcoin.
And that'll why not selling your Bitcoin is a good idea, and why that's a thing. It's hard to have those conversations now. Although we agree we're in the bull market now. And we're in the beginning stages at the spring part of it. When we're really rocketing off and people are asking us like, when should I sell? And then we have that conversation about why selling is not a good idea. And again, full transparency. If you're in a position where selling some Bitcoin will be extremely beneficial to your life situation in some sort of way, then of course, there's human aspect to this where you may need something may come up that just needs to be paid for and if you have a little bit of Bitcoin and that could change that for you, who am I to tell you not to do that? But to have zero Bitcoin ever again be a thing in your life is just not, it shouldn't be a place that you ever go.
People are like, crypto is risky. And they say it's risky because they don't understand it. They don't understand the investment. So how can you see value in something? You're not going to want to put money in it. You're not for sure not going to want to put thousands and thousands of dollars in something if you don't understand it. So that's where you have to take the time to build these resources, build your network. Being lazy. Being lazy is risky.
This is a little bit where we veer a little bit, because I do agree with what you said fundamentally. But where I will veer a little bit is that, like, the problem with that thought process of crypto not being risky is that there are bad actors in this space. Mm-hmm. There's bad actors in TradFi. There's bad actors in real estate. There's bad actors everywhere. So the education piece is going to be important. Right. But the problem is there are a lot of projects that are scam projects in crypto. I agree with you, but I just want to make sure that we're not just saying that, oh, just put your money in crypto and everything's going to be great. And again, crypto and Bitcoin are two separate things, because you got the Bitcoin Max that wants to make sure that investing in Bitcoin is not risky. But when people talk, because we're a crypto podcast, and you for sure have a lot of wealth of knowledge in the area of all the cryptos that I don't. The same way as if you open up a TD Ameritrade account and you start investing in stocks, that if you're not talking to somebody that's going to guide you through that process of what's good and what's not good, what has value and what doesn't have value, that's going to be risky. But if you get with somebody that understands markets, then you're going to have a better likelihood of being successful. And if you keep your money in longer, obviously you're going to be successful. So I don't want to say that, like, I know you made the crypto and Bitcoin distinction, but anything you invest in, it, even Bitcoin, if you're doing it wrong, can be risky, right? If you're coming into Bitcoin looking to sell in 6 months, that's risky because the price is volatile. So if you have a short time horizon in Bitcoin, that's risky. You're probably going to time that wrong, especially in the bull market. Like, it's easier to make money in the bear market because the price is usually it's not you're not having those, like, it's not going a ton down once you pass the bottom. Let me make that distinction. Once you pass the bottom and you're in that, like, there was a phase where we were consolidating within like 2,000 or 3,000 for like 3 or 4 months. Yeah. So that wasn't very risky. But when the price could go from like 75,000 to 100 and then back to 85, that's risky. If you're playing that wrong, you might buy at 75, watch it go to 90, and then sell and only make $1,000 because you're not playing that correctly, because your time preference and your time horizon is too small. If you buy, you better be buying to hold that thing for some time.
Whoever's watching this video and they're on 0 Bitcoin, every single day it becomes riskier and riskier.
100%.
Every single
100%.
day.
Owning Bitcoin is a lifestyle choice. What I mean by that is you're making a decision that the current system that we're in is not benefiting me in any sort of way. And we talked about this last week. We both believe it's going to eventually fail, either in my lifetime, your lifetime, or my kid's lifetime. So it's a choice to opt out of that failing system. So I don't even look at it as much. I get uncomfortable even sometimes when people talk about it as an investment, because I don't see it as that. Mm-hmm. I see my 401k through my job as an investment. I see, like I talked about Chainlink last week. I see that as an investment. Even
what is it up since you talked about it?
It's up again another like 10 or 20%.
So we can just dive right into some breaking news. U.S. banks hit by deposit delays. You want to dive a little bit into this? I know how some people had problems withdrawing their funds from big major banks. And do you think this is the collapse of the financial markets, or are we just screaming FUD?
We're not screaming FUD, and I don't think it's the collapse of the financial markets, because they're not going to let it happen that easily. But what I will say, and we were talking about this off camera before we started, is I was genuinely, and I guess at this point I shouldn't really be surprised, but I was genuinely surprised this weekend when I didn't see this get more coverage. And I only found it through the people I follow on Twitter, which is basically crypto Twitter and Bitcoin Twitter. I actually screenshotted it to you, if you remember, and I said, I'm going to look to see if this is confirmed, because I seen somebody tweet that they were having problems getting their withdrawal from Bank of America, and somebody commented underneath and said, yeah, same at Chase Bank. And I'm like, maybe this isn't real. Let me look and see. So I searched in the Twitter trending, and I just put Bank of America in, and I was just seeing tweet after tweet after tweet of people saying I went into Bank of America and they couldn't even give me my account balance, let alone withdraw. I definitely couldn't withdraw, but they couldn't tell me what my account balance was, and they said to come back later. And then I went on my Bank of America app, and my app wasn't working. I'm like, wow, that's the TradFi system, right? So you have this system, and what ended up happening was it was as, I guess you call it, as simple as they were having a problem with the payment processor and the clearinghouse on the back end. The reason why that's a big deal is because the whole reason why Bitcoin was created was to get rid of the third-party clearinghouse, to not have to worry about, are my funds going to be settled when I make a transaction? Or if the actor that's settling those is a good actor or a bad actor. Don't trust, verify, right? That's the thing that we end every podcast saying, because that's the Oedipus of this whole thing, is that Bitcoin was created to opt out of this corrupt and failing system. And we're seeing this happen in real time, where these banks are having these problems in 2023, these like third world problems in first world countries, that if you get into this new system of even I'll even like give you the stable coin piece. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you saw that there was a bank, and I wish I could remember the name. I've been watching podcasts all day today. I've been watching Bitcoin podcasts all day today. And one of the podcasts I watched was talking about how one of the U.S. banks, and I wish I knew the name of it. I should have wrote it down, or I should have at least screenshot it to you, is now accepting stable coins for transactions. That's a big deal. Yeah. And it's not ironic that that's like 3 or 4 days after we watched what happened at these other banks. So you putting your money in Bank of America, putting your money in Chase Bank, putting your money in all these banks, that's risky. And again, I always say, like, to understand crypto and Bitcoin, you have to first understand, number one, what money is, and number two, how the system works. And I will tell you with 100%, and again, this is for all the haters out there, they're going to talk shit about what I'm about to say, but do your research, look this shit up, and you'll see it's true. Every fucking bank in the United States of America is insolvent right now. All of them. Every bank is insolvent. They cannot produce deposits on demand if they were asked to do it by 100% of their customers today. Couldn't do it. 100% insolvent. The only reason why it works is because everybody's not going to the bank at the same time to get their deposits out. That's why it doesn't. That's why it's not failing. But when we go a couple of generations, or we go like 10, 20, 30 years, and the younger people that are more crypto friendly than bank friendly aren't even messing with the banks anymore, then what happens?
Information travels fast too. Anyone could go to their phone and pull out money right from their,
How did SVB and
it's not like back in 1929 where there was a line waiting outside.
Silicon Valley Bank failed overnight because people were on their phones making withdrawals. They didn't have to go, like, bank runs don't look the same. It's not 1933 where you got a line of people outside the bank and you can like stave that off, because you can do things while the people are in line to like make sure that doesn't happen. People are going on their apps and they're just making withdrawals. And at some point, you're going to reach a threshold where you can't meet that withdrawal. Because if you don't understand how banks work, they take your deposits and they invest them. And when you take interest rates from 0 to almost 6% in 12 months, all your deposits they took a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago are getting 1 or 2% when the market's paying 5 or 6. So they have to sell off at a loss. So they're losing money on what you put in there to try to pay people back. So at some point they can't meet all the deposits. So it doesn't happen to these big banks, because everybody feels good about Bank of America because they're too big to fail and they're these big banks. But every one of these banks are not solvent because of fractional reserve banking. And again, you got to understand this stuff to realize what's really going on. And again, like, I don't have time to go back and forth with the haters. Do your research, look it up. And if you don't believe me, God bless you. Good luck.
So you're telling me every single bank is an FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried waiting to implode?
Because of what happened in the last 12 months, yes. With interest rates, absolutely.
Well, they can just print more money.
And they will, and they do.
Yeah.
And we already saw that they'll go past the 250,000 FDIC threshold to make sure that all the customers are solved. But here's the scary part. We have printed ourselves into a situation where it's not a can we question anymore. It's a we have to scenario. They have to keep printing. The money printers, I talked about this already. One of two things has to happen. You turn the money printers off and you let the system just crash, fall, crater, and you just pick up the pieces of whatever's left over. Nobody wants that. Nobody's ready for that. The people that push the buttons don't want that because some of them will get crushed. So that's not even an option. Option number 2 is to continue printing in order to service the debt that this country has been accumulating. And I believe we're somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 trillion of debt, just interest on the debt that we pay per year. You know what the receipts are for taxes? What they get into, and this is again, and again, this is just people have to do the research and see this. So like, and I used to be one of those people, and I just don't do it anymore because I know better. But like, people are like, oh, that's my taxpayer money that you're using. Oh, look what they're doing with my tax, bro. We stopped that a long time ago. Your taxpayer money is a percentage of that. They take something like 600 or 700 billion in taxes in every year. They have to service $1 trillion in the interest. They're not taking anywhere near in the amount of taxes to service the interest on the debt. They have to print to pay the interest. So like inflation's going nowhere. Prices of goods and services will continue to rise. They'll reach that 2% that Powell's trying to reach in the short term, but eventually that'll keep going. We'll be living in an environment where we're just gonna have to accept that goods and services are gonna continue to rise. Wages aren't gonna meet that. There's a whole generation priced out of the housing market. Like it's only getting worse and worse and worse. And the only way you opt out of that is to find an asset that outpaces that. You can't put it in something that's like real estate is not outpacing it. You think that it is. Like you have these conversations with these real estate maxis, and God bless, you can make a lot of money in real estate. I'm not saying that you can't. I see you, Grant Cardone, and I see you out there making your money. Like I understand that money's to be made in real estate, but the problem is like inflation is inflating these prices. And now you have interest rates that are so high, you're past 8%. And I had a conversation, and again, back to the trolls, because I had to write this on one of the trolls that was writing about what I felt about real estate. No, they're like, oh no, real estate's never gonna crash. Let's take a step back and let's take a look at the real estate market for a second, okay? We had 12 years of essentially zero rates. I bought a house in 2021 at the tail end, and my rate was 2.9%. December of 2021. Today we're sitting at somewhere like 8.2, I think 8.1, 8.2%. So in the last, let's say 2010 to 2021, in a 12-year span-ish, you either could have bought a property at around 3% or refinanced if you had a higher into that 3%. So where does that buyer come along for that house that you own that's worth $500,000 that you're so happy about, that all your net worth's tied up in? Where does the buyer come that they're going to get out of their 3% mortgage to come buy yours at 8%? Where's that guy at? I'd love to meet him. Are they completely non-existent? No, I'm sure there's somebody out there that will, but are they coming en masse? Like, where's the money coming from? And the problem is, like, so many people in this country's net worth is tied into real estate. When you ask somebody, what's your biggest investment? Oh, my house that I own. My equity in my house. How you pulling that equity out? Who's coming along to buy that? Unless they got straight cash.
I got a lot of real estate maxis on social media. I don't think they like the stuff we talk about real estate. I think
they shouldn't.
I think real estate.
They shouldn't. You know why? Because we're a mirror for them.
Say that again?
They shouldn't like what we're saying because we're a mirror for them. Because they look in that and they know. If they look deep down inside, they know what time it is. Because if they're in real estate, they know real estate. Like we know Bitcoin, they know real estate. So they're doing lip service to prop all this. They know what's going on. If they don't, they're just dumb or ignorant. Like that's possible, I guess. But like when you really look at it, like I have friends, and I'm not going to talk any junk because maybe they'll see this podcast, and I don't want them to feel like I'm talking directly to them. But I know people that are into real estate and they're selling real estate. That's their job. Mm-hmm. So like that's their livelihood, bro. And like they put these posts up about like how this is a great time to buy a house, and I'm just like, for who? You know what I'm saying? Like, how is it a great time? I don't understand. I bought a house in 2021 December at 2.9%. If I was buying that same house today, my mortgage would be 3 times higher. Who's it good for? You? Getting the commission? Sure as hell ain't good for me. You know what I'm saying? Unless the buyer's coming with straight cash. Who's got straight cash right now? We're more in debt than we've been at any point in time. Like we exhausted those COVID funds. People are ringing up the credit cards now. The debts. It's not just the United States. I mean, look at who we're modeling ourselves after. The United States government is spending like a drunken sailor. So of course the citizens are going to do the same thing because the government does it. But the government can print money. We can't. Because there's always going to be a need for property. They'll always. And again, and I hate to go after like real estate agents. I don't want to. I know some people that are really good at that job. If you're good at a job, if you're good in a field, you'll make it in that field. It doesn't matter what it is. If you are talented in a field, you'll adjust with it. So there's people out there that are going to be okay, even as the market shifts and changes. But like I think of The Big Short, and I think of that movie where we had those two like cocky real estate agents that were dumb as a doornail and they just like were making money hand over fist because of how the market was going. Like they don't have any intrinsic skills. They were just making money because real estate's a great place to make money. And those type of people are going to die out. They're going to be in the unemployment line like they were in The Big Short. So you have to be willing to adjust and adapt. And again, if you're a real estate maxi and then you make your money in real estate, if you're smart, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. So I'm not saying that. I don't want to come off like I think real estate's just going to die and the whole thing's going to implode. It imploded in 2008. It took the world on the brink of a global collapse. And there's other behind the scenes factors that led to it not completely collapsing, but like it came back. And again, part of that was bringing rates down low. And I think we'll be at that point again. But the only difference, and again, this even comes to the conversation of like the older generation when I'm saying, oh, I remember in 1970 and 1980, mortgage rates on houses were like 18%. So we made it with 18% back then. We can handle 8% now. And it's like, okay, but did you have 0% rates for 12 years before that? Did you have people used to like super low rates and all of a sudden jack it up on them? Like that's the difference. That's an enormous difference, right? So like, yes, you're right. Like rates have been higher before. And even if you look at like over the 30-year span from like, if you go back to 1993, I think the average interest rate on a house is something like 7% over that 30-year span. But like averages are very deceiving because you had such a long period of time where it was super, super low. And you had so many people lock into those low rates. And those people got used to those mortgages. And things have gotten only worse with interest, with inflation and wages not growing as fast. So like now you're hitting people with these higher rates and they can't afford it. All right. So you may be aware that a career politician passed away, Congresswoman Feinstein. She was out of San Francisco, which is having their own little problems now. It's not the greatest city to be in. She passed away about a month ago, I would say, give or take. Jimmy Song, I'm going to give credit to because he tweeted this. If you're not following him and you're into crypto, you're doing it wrong. He's great. At Jimmy Song. He wrote, Feinstein has passed away. Her political career parallels that of Biden, serving as a figurehead for forces operating behind the scenes. Despite a career solely in public service, including roles as a regulator, mayor of San Francisco, and U.S. senator, her net worth as of 2018 was $87 million. And I want to tell you that he had a follow-up to that. He was actually wrong, was $212 million. $212 million. She exemplifies the Cantillon effect where those closest to money creation benefit the most. Her long tenure in power likely stems from a desire to perpetuate this financial advantage. The wealth she amassed didn't just come from U.S. taxpayers. It also impacted some of the world's poorest and most vulnerable individuals. The expansive reach of the U.S. dollar has global consequences. While mainstream media may portray her as a saintly figure, it's essential to scrutinize her actions, which should be described as thievery and fraud. She is a symbol of what's wrong with the system, why fiat money makes everything so political, and why undeserving people like her get to rent seek and make tons of money at everyone else's expense. Thankfully, there's a way out, and that's Bitcoin. Only by taking away the power of money printing can these thieving oligarchs be stopped. You know who her protege is? Who she was the mentor of, or is the mentor of, or I guess you could say was now that she passed away? Cool. Nancy Pelosi. Great follow on Twitter. Nancy Pelosi's stock picks. It's at Nancy Pelosi stock picks, where you can see what she owns in her portfolio and when she votes on certain things and those stocks move and how her net worth. And it's basically the same playbook. She's following the Feinstein playbook. So these people that are close to the money printing are able to craft laws. They have inside information and they profit from it. These people, and again, I want you to do the math, okay? Now we're talking about coming into office in the 70s and 80s, and here it is today, 2023. They make like somewhere in the neighborhood of 187,000 or 200,000 a year. Nothing to sneeze at. Good money, very good salary, right? But that's today in 2023. So they've been in office for 30, 40 years. When they first came into office, you're talking about sub $100,000 of annual income. How do you amass hundreds of millions of dollars of net worth making that kind of money in public service? Unless you are directly responsible for this fiat standard and this printing of money that only benefits the people closest to the money printer. Which brings me a little bit off topic to, you know, we're a year out from a presidential election, and people are always like asking me about, like, you know, am I Republican? Am I Democrat? Do I vote for Biden? Do I vote for Trump? Let me tell you guys a secret, and this will probably piss off some people too. I don't vote. It's absolutely pointless, because all the people you're voting for, even though they tell you they're on one side and they'll tell you they're on the other side, they're all playing for the same team. The people that donate to these political parties are the same people donating on both sides. So they keep us divided so they can share all the wealth. Because it's not just Democrat. I don't want to just say that, you know, Feinstein and Pelosi. There's a lot of Republicans that are doing the same thing. Chuck Grassley's like 170 years old, and he's been in Congress. I think they were a horse and buggy when he first got in, and he's a Republican. Like his net worth is ridiculous. Like, it's on both sides. So you know how I vote? I buy Bitcoin. That's my vote. I opt out of the corrupt system. That's how I vote. The fighting with a fellow American over, you know, we just forget that we're all on the same team, man. Like, if somebody comes here and tries to take us over, like, we're all gonna fight together because we're all Americans. Like, so this being on separate team stuff, like, you can be Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. This podcast is for everybody. Like, and again, like, do you, like, if you feel like you need to vote, or you feel like that's what, like, I'm not hating on it, I'm just telling you what I do, because I know how the system works, and I know that going to the polls and pushing a button or doing, it's not doesn't matter. You're voting for a different shade of shit.
Well, you can pull this up, and this is Dave Ramsey. I learned about Dave Ramsey when I was in high school, man. And I actually looked up to him because he was like that. He played the long game, right? He preached buy the S&P 500, sit on it, $500 a month, and then, you know, by the time you retire, 60. I remember they had this calculator. It was a Dave Ramsey calculator, and you can put in how much you're going to monthly invest in the S&P 500, and it'll show you your returns. It was like $6 million over like 40 years, and, you know, you're 18 years old, and you're looking at this. It has a successful show. We can play this for a second, and then we can talk about this. Dave Ramsey calls Bitcoiners stupid and says Bitcoin is a really good way to turn $1 million into nothing. And Bitcoin price at the time was $550. And if you bought 1 million of Bitcoin at the time of this show, you would have over $63 million.
And what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a currency on the internet. It has no value except to the extent someone else will take it from you as value. Just like that paper has no value except the extent someone else will take it. So Bitcoin is the Iraqi dinar of the internet. And I know intelligent people who, while they're intelligent, are not wise, that have put a bunch of money in Bitcoin. But it's a really good way to turn $1 million into nothing. To play in unstable currencies that they're, and here's what you have. Let me tell you what Bitcoin is. It's WWW. It's the wild, wild west. You're back to the Western banking system. Because all of a sudden, one of these computer nerds just flips a switch. The whole freaking thing's gone. It has no value. They just got completely ripped off, and it took them down. And so the
yeah, I wanna hit on some of the things that you said talking about Dave Ramsey, because I would put Robert Kiyosaki in the same bucket as Dave Ramsey. and even I mentioned Grant Cardone, and I would say even Grant Cardone as well. These influencers, because that's what they are now. These financial influencers, when they're creating their brand, they are trying to reach as many people as they possibly can with their message. They want to make their message as applicable to the masses as they potentially can. So when you do that, you're going to craft like a very, very basic approach. For Ramsey, it's, don't waste your money on Starbucks, pay off your debt. You could do the snowball effect, or you could pay the highest interest rate first. All those types of things, put your money in an S&P. Like that all is very like easy for somebody who's drowning in debt and financially illiterate to learn how to get their self in a better situation. And he brings value. He brought value. I would say he brought value. I would say that
past tense.
He's given, because he's still, his shtick is kind of still the same. So there's value. There definitely is value for people. And I would even say more so. When I first got financially literate, because again, I wasn't in my early 20s. I've talked about that before. One of the first people that I really learned about money and finances and everything from was Robert Kiyosaki. So there's always this place that I have for Kiyosaki because I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I started to learn about what assets and liabilities were, and it really reframed how I viewed finances. So it kind of hurts me to talk about Kiyosaki today the way that I see him today, because I have that great memory of like what he did for me early on. So I feel the same way like with Ramsey, but the problem is like they've gotten so big that it's more so now that like they try to talk about how they made their money, and their wealth today has been really created on telling other people how to fix their financial situation. So it's like, where's the line of where Kiyosaki made all that money early, or where Rich Dad Poor Dad made him a lot of money and the royalties from that made him money? Or like Ramsey talks about like going broke and then like turning him, like he was a millionaire very young, lost it all, and then like rebuilt a portfolio and like teaches other people. But like, where's the line of where like that's a thing and like where he made money giving financial advice? Because I think his net worth is something like 50 million. So it's like, how much of that is from what he does here? And again, I say that because I think they've brought value, but they're not, their message isn't changed. Their message is the same. Kiyosaki's trying. He talks about gold, silver, and Bitcoin. But like when you hear Kiyosaki talk about Bitcoin, he has no idea what he's talking about. You'll hear him say like when the right time to sell Bitcoin, like, and he talks about like, oh, Bitcoin's going to go down. Like he doesn't truly, because he understands gold. He's talked about gold all the time, and he tries to talk about gold 2.0 being Bitcoin. But when you hear him talk about Bitcoin, it's obvious he doesn't understand it. So like, then it's like you take that step back and it's like they're grifters, like they're grifting. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like it's like, yes, they bring some value, but like for him to say that in 2014, and again, that's like he gets a little bit of benefit of the doubt because I was around in 2014 and everybody was saying that in 2014. Yeah, but he hasn't really changed his message. He hasn't updated his message. He hasn't even like given any thought to that being a bad set of advice, and maybe that's something you need to look at, and maybe it is something like could be a store of value. Like he hasn't even entertained that thought. You know what I'm saying? So these guys, you have to be very careful. And again, even watching us, like you should always be like vetting the people that you're listening to. Like what is their motive? And these guys, they have huge followings. Kiyosaki, like when you talk finances, people like always say, oh, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like they know that. They know him. And Ramsey, big following. Grant Cardone, like from what I've seen, like another grifter. Like these programs that these guys sell, like you spend all this money. I was watching one special, like somebody bought it was like $10,000 to like attend one of his programs, and somebody like secretly recorded it, and it was like shit you could just like Google or YouTube. It was like, it wasn't any, it was like no value, like there was no real value that was coming out of what he was trying to give somebody. Like it wasn't like, oh, here's like my inside information. It was like basic stuff that like nothing, no real value.
So Don, you don't want to buy my program?
I'm not talking about your program, Troy. I'm just saying that like these guys that have these huge followings, like you always have, again, like
don't trust, verify.
Yeah.
You say that.
Yeah. And you're going to have to be real careful in crypto too, because you got these guys that'll come along that'll tell you that they know what they're talking about. But when Bitcoin hits 100,000, you're going to see people come along that have bigger followings than we have, that have way less experience in this space than we have.
Another thing that I've noticed, it's more of a social sentiment catalyst. It's not so much the price. Yes, the price looks really great, but I've noticed, and I looked at one of the bigger like Bitcoin crypto accounts, and I looked at their followers, and they're actually up like a significant amount of followers. So you can, that gives you an instincts like, okay, retail is coming back. Like I'm actually starting to get messages from people like what are your top like 5 altcoins? These I haven't heard from in 2 years. And they're coming back. I know you're not selling your positions, maybe your altcoins, but once retail's back, like that's when I'm gonna start scaling out, like rotating profit. Like you said, our podcast is gonna change. Like we're still gonna stress buying Bitcoin. Our strategies, at least my strategy, is gonna change. Like I'm not gonna say short crypto because anyone shorting crypto is not smart. I'm definitely gonna play it more cautious, and that's like the clock's ticking. The longer people wait, the riskier it is. Like when prices are up, like significant, that's when the real risk is involved. Bitcoin's still down, 50% from its all-time high. Like a lot of these altcoins are still down 67% from their all-time high. And we're leaving the accumulation phase. The last 2 years were the time to accumulate. So right now I'm really doing nothing besides just stacking more sats. So
I love doing this podcast. Okay. Yeah. I look forward to doing this every week. I love doing this podcast. Yeah. I love doing this podcast with you. I love talking about Bitcoin every week. And I think this has definitely sharpened, me in this space. I mean, I studied it no matter what, but I think I've stepped it up even more because we do this. And I'm saying this because I'm going to preface it with something that I'm going to follow it up with. When the bull run hits, it's going to be so fun doing this podcast.
So fun, dude.
But there's going to be one part that's going to be annoying.
What?
It's going to be like a letdown.
I know. It's so peace and I'm saying like it was peaceful and quiet and
not even that. It's going to be frustrating because for the last 12 months we've been spending our time telling people what's coming and trying to onboard people and trying to educate people and give people gems that they can use for when that time that we're going to be enjoying is going to happen. And those people the majority of the people that we've been talking to aren't going to be listening until it's too late. Mm-hmm. And then again, like I said, the narrative of this podcast will change. The things that we talk about and the tone of it will change because the market will have changed. And the questions that they're asking then, they should be asking now. The moves that they're going to want to know answers to then, they should want to know now. If you're watching this, if you're one of our 180, 190 subscribers that we have, that I'm thankful for each and every one of them at this point, right? There's a J. Cole tweet from like way back in the day where he said, I have 500 followers and I'm thankful for each and every one of them. And now he's a worldwide star with millions of followers. And I feel like that'll be us. I don't know about millions of followers, but I feel like one day we'll catch on and we'll have a following. So like right now, every person that watches our videos, I'm so thankful for them. The clicks that we get, the views, even the hating comments, I'm thankful for it all. But the point I'm trying to say is that we made this podcast to be a vessel for people that have questions because this is where it's going. Like this in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, like I was saying it, but like even in the deep recesses of my mind, I'm like, I feel like that's where it's going, but I'm not really 100% sure. I'm 100% confident that this is where things are going, and this is where people need to be, and this is where people need to be allocated in some sort of way. So the inevitable is, I have a 1,000+ friends, follow, whatever you call them, on Facebook, and I have people on so many people in this area know me as the Bitcoin guy. Because I mean, if you do your research on me, if you go on my Facebook, if you go on my Instagram, and you scroll back to 2014, 2015, I was talking about buying Bitcoin, and you will not find in my social media anywhere talking about selling. I think I may have made a post in 2018 when I made my big exit to get fiat, to put myself in a better fiat position for other things in life. The only time I've ever sold, and the only time since I've sold, I may have posted that one time. But outside of that, you can't find another time about me telling people to sell. I've only been telling people to accumulate. I have the receipts. I've been here. So I say that because when this thing rockets past 100,000, like we passed the point of no return. I feel like we are on the cusp of that. Mm-hmm. We're not there yet. We know the ETFs are coming. BlackRock is going to get approved. Fidelity is going to get approved. You know, all these other ones are going to get approved. There's going to be 8, 9, 10 of those. Trillions of dollars are coming flooding into space. The supply and demand effect will kick in. 100K will be easily breached. We may see multiple 100Ks this cycle. I mean, we both feel 120 is the conservative number, but we could definitely see 200, right? It's within the realm of possibility. We're sitting in 2023 that in 2030, we see $1 million Bitcoin by then. That's only 7 years, right? So people are going to be coming to us. I know they'll come to me for sure because they have I've been here 4 times. They do. They always do. The DMs will be open. They're always open. And people will be asking me. And I'll be frustrated, like I've said before, that like they're asking then and they're not asking now. Because it's so hard to help somebody navigate when you're having those wild, like when you might, in May of 2021, when you go to bed and the price is 61,000 and you wake up and it's 30 and people are like, oh my God, do I sell? And I'm telling them, no, why would you sell? We're not done. It's not done. And people are looking at me like I'm absolutely out of my mind. And I'm telling them, no, I'm not selling anything. Yeah. Zero, nothing. Nothing is being sold because it's not done. The cycle's not over. And people were just like dumbfounded that I took that position. And then a couple months later, I was texting them. Remember when I told you?
Yeah.
And people exited in May. Yeah. A lot of people exited early in that cycle. And again, Sam Bankman-Fried, we can thank him because that cycle was stunted because of that. And you got the opportunity to get generation-changing money because of him. And again, it hurt a lot of people. But the people that stuck around, and again, we started the whole podcast by saying that, you know, we feel for the people that were hurt. But when you take a step back and look at the whole picture of what happened in 2021, 2022, 2023, those of you that stuck around are going to be thankful that you did. And you're going to look at the FTX collapse, the Three Arrows Capital, all that stuff that occurred as a blessing, that you're able to get generational wealth changing money and an asset. Because yes, $35,000 is still a whole hell of a lot of money for me. It's a lot of money for me. For me to just take $35,000 cash and put it into Bitcoin, that's a lot for one purchase. It's a lot, right? I've worked in social work for the last 12 years of my life. Like, my salary's modest. I'm good because I got in early, right? But you can still take money if you've been doing it since the beginning, and you could have dollar cost average when it was 15. You could have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 of a coin at this point. And if we go up to a $1 million Bitcoin in 7 years, you're talking about $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 for what? A couple thousand?
I think I'm going to look back, or we're going to look back in 2024, 2025, when we actually, like, when things take off. I'm going to miss this period. Like, I feel like it was so peaceful and quiet. I know we've had a lot of Black Swan events, but even on crypto Twitter, like, so, like, quiet. No one's posting. Like, the vibe is just, like, I feel like everyone was freaking working their ass off, like, outside of crypto, too. Like, yeah, you can work in crypto and make money, but a lot of it is, like, just, like, increasing your income and then having that income to put into more sats, more Bitcoin. And I think I'm going to look back in 2023, 2022 and be like, I'm going to miss that. Like, this is like my first real, like, cycle. Like, I came in 2017, but I left in 2019 to 2020, and I came back early 2021. But this is my first cycle, and I'm just, like, emotional kind of, but, like, it's part of the game, it's part of the process, and we're going to reap the rewards because we've been paying attention the last 2 years.
Best content is created in the bear markets. Like, yeah. You're going to want to, and again, this podcast was created in the bear market, so hopefully we're going to be on your list of follows. But outside of just us, like, go and follow people now. Look for people that have been here for a while. Don't make the mistake, because last cycle we had these people coming in. I mean, I'm been along long enough to remember, like, BitConnect, Crypto Nick, like Trayvon James, like these guys that were like grifters and scammers that were along the way in 2015, 16, 17, and were creating content. And then when the bear market came, they were gone. They just they left. Like, they weren't real Bitcoiners. They were just like, I'm not doing this necessarily to make money. If that is part of it, awesome. I'm doing this because I believe that Bitcoin is transformational change for mankind. I don't do it justice like Michael Saylor does, but if you listen to enough Michael Saylor videos, you get it.
It's like, I think Bitcoin's like back 5,000 years ago when they first discovered gold. And they first were mining for gold.
It's even more than that, because gold, as good as it's been and as good as it is, didn't have the ability to change the world in the way that Bitcoin can, because gold backed the money, and it was a good stopgap. But we still had a lot of problems, even still with that. And the infinite amount of money that's being printed allows like forever wars to be a thing. And if we change the money, dude, like you say, it's said and people don't really grasp it. It's like cliche at this point. If you watch enough Bitcoin videos, change the money, you change the world. Like there's so many things that change if you can't print money to infinity. So if we are able to change the money and change the way that money is created, money creation, and the infinite amount of spending, like just lives get better. Less wars are fought. Like so many things life just gets better. So it's like you come for the money, like I said last week, and you stay for the revolution, because we're trying to make lives better, man. That's why get like British Hodl is a good follow right now. His sole mission is to get everybody to 1 Bitcoin. And like I said, 35,000 is still a big number. Many people, I think it's for a lot of people, it's too late to get to 1 Bitcoin, but get off zero. That's our message. Yeah. My message is get off zero. If you have no Bitcoin right now, get that first 1,000 Satoshis.
Get Ethereum too.
$35. $35.
1,900 Ethereum.
$35, you can get 100,000 Satoshis right now. $35 US, you can get 100,000 Satoshis.
How much Gwei can you get?
I don't concern myself with all that nonsense.
All right. Well, we're coming down to our last minutes. Do any of you last minute closing thoughts before I go into the national anthem? The Bitcoin national anthem, sorry. You can just go right into it. You had a funny comment on this post.
All right, let's go into that then.
All right.
That's good.
So, Don, you El Salvador needs to be renamed El Bitcoinia. The current national anthem, the third longest in the world, nearly 4 minutes, needs to be replaced by Pump It Up. The flag needs to change to white and orange, and the volcanoes can stay. So you had a comment, Max, you need to sponsor a contest to have a music artist create a Bitcoin national anthem. That would be sick.
So for context, Max Kaiser,
yeah,
he is he's a Bitcoin maxi. He's living in El Salvador. El Salvador is, if you're a hardcore Bitcoiner, dude, it's a great place. I want it. It's on the bucket list to go. Bukele, the president, has basically changed that economy overnight by going to a Bitcoin standard for that country. It's a great experiment. It's a smaller country, but they've reduced crime. Things have got, like everything I said about like change the money, change the world. Like El Salvador has been changed with Bitcoin. And Max Kaiser's working with the president. Max Kaiser's been in Bitcoin since like he got his first Bitcoin. I think he said it like $1 or $2. Like he has tons of Bitcoin. He's massively wealthy through Bitcoin. Great follow. That comment that you just read that I said, Max, you need to sponsor a contest to have a music artist create a Bitcoin national anthem. That would be sick. He retweeted that, which is a big deal because he's big in the space. He liked it and he retweeted it. And it got 6.4 thousand views, and I got 20 likes on it. But like the grand scheme of it is like bringing that up. That places like El Salvador, places like you got a guy that you deal with through your
Nigeria.
Yeah, he's in Nigeria, and like real change. Like Bitcoin to him is not what Bitcoin is to us. Like his life is like drastically changed for good because of Bitcoin in Nigeria. Like when you had me on that call with that dude and he was like asking questions and I realized like where he was from and like how he was it was like, dude, that shit was inspiring to me. Yeah. Like that's the stuff that I'm talking about. It's not like, oh, like I'm one of the people that has more than 1 Bitcoin and I'm able to be in the 21 million club. I'm not stunting on anybody right now. I'm just saying that. But I'm able to like have my financial position solidified because I own I have a high net worth in Bitcoin. It's because of stuff like that. Like that's why we're doing this podcast. Because like if you change the money, dude, you change the world. And like other areas of the world are seeing it. And say what you will, but this country is changing and not for the better. So if we're not careful, we might be in some of the circumstances that some of these other third world countries are at. And it's because of the money. The money's shit. Don't trust verify.
How does it go? Sing it.
I don't have.
Come on, Don, sing it. All right. Well, next podcast will come with an actual anthem.
We need a music. If you're a musical artist, if you make music,
we'll give you sats.
We'll pay you some satoshis to make a Bitcoin national anthem, and we will tweet at Max Kaiser and see what he thinks.